Okay, let's talk about why the carnivore diet is shortening your life. So don't get me wrong, I really think the carnivore diet is a million times better than the plant-based diet. I love meat. I think it's really important. I love animal products. I mostly eat animal products. But if you're gonna do strict carnivore, you're shooting yourself in the foot for a few reasons. And the first reason is that simply not eating a lot of carbohydrates sends the signal of starvation to the body, right? We know the research has shown this decades ago that even an isocaloric, isoproteinic ketogenic diet, which means ketogenic diet with the same amount of protein and the same amount of calories that the people need to maintain body mass, right? So they're not cutting calories or protein. 4 days of this kind of diet, keto diet, already shifts the body into this catabolic mode with the glucagon rising, the insulin falling, the thyroid hormones down regulating. So we know and this study was done in the 80s, 1982. So since then, at least we know that, but we know it since the beginning of the ketogenic diet, which was like in the 1920s, because if a diet that is ketogenic causes ketones to be produced, it means the body thinks it's starving, right? So a low carb diet, especially one that is ketogenic, sends the signal of starvation. So there was another study in from 1992 called carbohydrate restriction regulates the adaptive response to fasting. And basically, they stated there that these results demonstrate that restriction of dietary carbohydrate, not the general absence of energy intake itself, is responsible for initiating the metabolic response to short term fasting. So, carbohydrate restriction sends the signal of starvation. That is why a keto diet gets a person into ketosis after a while, because um, they're getting the signal of starvation. And what happens when the body gets the signal of starvation? Well, I covered that in the book. It's obviously not it's not um it's not good, right? Would you, just logically thinking about it, do you think if you're constantly sending the signal of starvation to your body, do you think your body is going to be at optimal functioning, or is it going to start down regulating things that it deems are not super important or for immediate survival, right? So given the fact that, let's just think about it like this now, given the fact that male infertility today has caught up with female infertility, and it's harder than ever for even young couples to conceive, do you think that this low carb movement, paleo, keto, carnivore, all this stuff, do you think that has something to do with it, especially when coupled with intermittent fasting and other fasting and cold plunges? Yeah, I really think it does have something to do with it, because when you do low carb, and of course when you do fasting, but when you do low carb, your cortisol inherently has to rise, because you, especially if it's a low carb without getting into ketosis, you need to stimulate gluconeogenesis in the liver in order to produce the glucose deficit that you're not getting, right? So that glucose will still get made, and that's quite a lot of it too. At least, so let's say if you're eating 100 grams of carbohydrates today, you you need probably at least another 50, 70, 80, maybe even more depending if you're super active, to be created by the body. That will either be broken down protein from your food or broken down tissue, lean tissue from your body, bones and um, muscle and stuff like that, lean mass. and a little bit, a tiny amount of it will be made from fat, from the glycerol backbones of triacylglycerols or triglycerides. Tiny, negligible amount, very, very much negligible. And a lot of, well, some of these carnivore guys are like, yeah, but the glycerol backbones. Well, you, if you do the math, it's a very, very negligible pathway to glucose production to meet like a normal human being's daily energetic needs. So we also know, and some of this research that I kind of am mentioning in passing, it's all in the book, and I have the masterclass you can go and view on how to actually live longer.com. Go to my website and you can see all the studies I kind of mention in passing here. I kind of go over them systematically so you can see uh, how low carb and keto diets, they send the signal of starvation. Then how that causes obviously an increase in cortisol, and then also how cortisol, because it's an antagonist of testosterone, it's very well known that if cortisol increases, testosterone decreases. And they've done different kind of experiments lowering, um, by administering insulin, and that lowering the blood glucose, that causes cortisol to increase to bring up the blood sugar, that causes testosterone to decrease. Okay. Or administering glucocorticoid like hydrocortisone or whatever the glucocorticoid medication was, that also, because it's cortisol mimicking chemical, that also causes a dropping testosterone. Point being, chronically elevated cortisol by keto, carnivore, low carb diets, and a lot of exercising, and a lot of maybe intermittent fasting or whatever else, regular fasting, water fasting, that will, first of all, that increase in cortisol chronically will, first of all, age you faster. Okay, it will age you faster. It's well known, cortisol ages you faster. It degenerates your body, but it will also tank your testosterone, because again, they're oppositional forces. So that is, in a nutshell, why the carnivore diet, low carb diets, are terrible for longevity. They will tank your testosterone, up your cortisol, and that will cause a lot of issues with uh, gonadosteroidogenesis, right? So making testosterone, DHT, all those male hormone steroids. It will again degenerate your tissues faster. It causes wasting of. So some of these carnivore guys are buying this amazing meat, grass fed, all that good stuff. And what they're then doing is they're converting the protein from that meat into glucose to meet their demands, because the body cannot go without it. It will make it, whether by hook or by crook, it will break down your body, it will break down your delicious, expensive grass fed steak. And 100 grams of protein, which is probably a pound of meat to get that 100 grams of protein or more, that, when it's turned into glucose, never mind the fact that it causes all this ammonia to be released, which is toxic to the kidneys. It costs you energy and nutrients to detoxify it and stuff. That 100 grams of protein, that 1 pound of steak or more, will only get converted to 50 grams of glucose, which is again not even enough to run your brain for half a day. So you need way more, way more than that. And that's a few tablespoons of honey, it's 50 grams of glucose, it's like 4 tablespoons of honey, something like that, which costs, I don't know, $2 if you get it organic. 100 grams of honey is 80 grams of carbohydrate, and that costs, I don't know, a buck 50, $2 if it's organic, high quality honey. Whereas a pound of grass fed steak, that can cost, I don't know, like uh $30. I don't know, depending on where you're from, how quality the meat is. It could be 20, 30, $40. So It's a waste of money, and it's also toxic, and it's also stimulating stress hormone release, and it's aging a person faster. So that is why carnivore diet is a bad idea long term. Now, if you have a lot of food sensitivities and your gut is really messed up, yeah, you could use it as an elimination diet for a while, but it comes at a cost. You really have to understand it comes at a cost. So the thing is, here's where people make a big mistake. They are they might be on a standard Western diet, standard American diet, eating garbage for a while, and they're like, no, I need to stop this, I need to get my act together. And then they listen to a podcast, and then some guys like, yeah, the carnivore diet is amazing, you should try it. So the person goes from standard American, standard Western diet to carnivore diet. They clean up the diet amazingly well, and they feel amazingly better, right? They feel much better. So that's this is where we conflate the benefits of cleaning up our diet, being more intentional with what we eat, with the intervention that we chose. So it could be going from standard American to keto. It could be to going to carnivore, fruitarian, plant-based, Atkins diet. It doesn't matter. Almost any diet you move to, you will feel better. So the problem then, a lot of people kind of the trap that a lot of people fall into is they think that that diet is amazing, whereas the magic was just being more intentional with what you eat and cleaning up your diet, and sometimes eating less. That's why people lose weight, like on a low carb diet, on carnivore or keto. If you're eating a high fat or high protein diet, you will feel very satiated, so you might actually eat less as well as eating cleaner food, more real food. And then you're gonna lose weight, you feel better, your blood pressure drops, you sleep better, your partner sleeps better, your relationship improves, everybody's happy. So you're like, oh my god, this is the best thing ever. No, what was the best thing ever is giving a damn about your health and taking care of your health. And again, you that's amazing that people are doing that. The problem is, and I've made this mistake many a time with plant-based, with keto and carnivore and whatever else, and this is why I'm trying to save you all that trouble and hassle, is that when you move to extremely suboptimal standard Western diet to less suboptimal, whatever, low carb, keto, blah blah blah, carnivore, plant-based, you are gonna improve for a while, and then when you've kind of reached the plateau in terms of improvements, then you're gonna start going down. It's slow downhill. With plant-based, it's gonna be nutritional deficiencies, a lot of oxalates and plant toxins and stuff like that, or too much fiber feeding the wrong bacteria, causing gut dysbiosis. Whereas with carnivore or high meat diet or low carb diet, you're going to have all this degenerative action of cortisol, sleep problems. You're going to have there's other much longer term issues, like the fact that a carnivore diet with all the phosphates in the meat will actually leach calcium from your bones. The fact that there's certain amino acids in meat that, if not balanced correctly the way we do with my clients, then you're going to predispose yourself to the inflammatory effects of those amino acids. And some of these amino acids, like methionine, in animal studies, they shorten lifespan. And when you restrict methionine, for example, you extend lifespan, and those animals become pretty damn resilient. They can't get fat and stuff like that, even if you increase their calories. So there's certain amino acids that are too abundant in meat. Also, iron is too abundant in meat, right? So if you don't know how to balance and ameliorate some of these negative effects, you could be in trouble. This is why I do not recommend carnivore diet long term.